There we go. Where is it? Oh, there we go. Howdy. Welcome to the show. You've got the first snort for today. Welcome to the show. My name is Nguyen. I am the host and creator of the show, the Snort Cast. And the Snort Cast is a live interview show talking to funny people from all around the world, how they apply their comedy to their storytelling and their work. Now, before we begin the show, I would like to know where you are snorting from. If you are watching live or on replay, please hashtag live and replay and tell us where you're snorting from. It's so important that I know my community and which part of the world you're watching this show. And we are live on LinkedIn and Facebook. So please tell us where you are watching this show from. And also, if you would like to follow us, we are on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just go to @TheSnortCast or hashtag #TheSnortCast. As you know, September is coming to an end, and I always want to pay it forward. And the charity that I'm supporting this month is September. I am dancing and moving and supporting this organisation that's so young children can move just like me when I'm dancing here on LinkedIn. So if you would like to support, the link is on the banner right now. And thank you to my Patreon community for supporting the SnortCast. It's been such a wonder and joy for me, especially during this pandemic. Like, if you had asked me, I was going to do a live show talking to comedians, talking to funny people, talking to people who apply stories into their work. I didn't think this would happen during a pandemic, but because of the pandemic, it happened. So yay! Thank you to the lockdown in Melbourne. But we are seeing the light. The pandemic is easing here. In the pandemic, the lockdown is easing, and hopefully we get to enjoy our summers and be safe as well. Now, before I bring on my guest, please tell us where you're watching from, live, replay, and if you want to leave a snort emoji, you know what to do. And without further ado, I welcome my guest, Michelle Law. Oh my goodness. I've been following her work, and I cried at her show at the Arts Centre when it came to Melbourne. Single Asian female. The moment the song Tina Arena came on, I'm in chains. I was bawling. It was just so nostalgic, and coming from a family of, just women, I connected to the show, and it was really wonderful to see a diverse audience watching this show. And that's one of the things I'm working really hard for, is that to have an audience that is diverse and not just cater to a particular audience. And so I've totally, if you ever get to see Single Asian Female, it probably will tour around the world, but she's got other projects as well. She's got Homecoming Queens, which was an SBS show, which she co-created and co-starred in. And yeah, also on top of that, she's an actor, so she's multi-talented. I think I've said enough, but let's check out her work of Single Asian Female. And if you are watching, just remember, tell us where you're watching the show from, and let's check this out.
Single Asian Female, it's a family comedy. At its heart, you've got the Wong family, and each of them is keeping secrets from each other.
Well, that didn't work. I love a live show. This is all about it. Well, I'll try to bring it on later if I can. If I can't, it's okay. But please welcome our guest for tonight, Michelle Law. Oh, hang on, I've got to bring her on.
I've realised that I actually have another light that I could put on, so I'm not shrouded in darkness.
Awesome. Thanks for joining the show, Michelle.
Thanks for having me.
Look, you're an actor, you're a writer, you've written a TV show, you've written a play that's been toured around Australia. Who else are you? What else do you do?
I don't know. I mean, like that's pretty comprehensive. I started first and foremost as a writer. So my background's in like literary writing. So I started off writing fiction and writing for magazines and broadsheet newspapers, and then sort of became a screenwriter after that. And then playwriting really came up maybe 5 or so years ago. And I've always been acting as well, like probably since, like middle school days.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So would you say acting, what came first? What was the first venture into the arts for you?
Oh, first venture into the arts, probably visual arts and acting. So when I finished school, I was really tossing up between doing visual arts or going to acting school or becoming a writer. And then ultimately I chose to study writing because my brother's a writer as well, and he's a fair bit older, and he was sort of giving me advice and was like, oh, you should do writing because it'll give you a lot more agency in your career. So I'm definitely glad I took that advice. But, acting probably came first. I was always sort of doing like extracurricular drama activities and stuff at school and doing drama Stedfords that I look back on and I'm like, those were absolutely horrific. Just like the costumes and things that I wore and the monologues and duologues that I did that were really cringeworthy. But yeah, so that's something that I've circled back to in the last couple of years.
Great. Cool. Great to know, because my first love was piano, and then I went into singing in the school choir, and then it was acting, but then I trained as an actor. So it's interesting what you come back to.
Yeah, that is interesting. I also played violin stereotypically. So I played violin and also was in choirs. Like I was in the Australian Youth Choir for like several years. And so I've recently gone back to just like going to singing lessons for fun. So it's definitely something that it's like a full 360.
Wow. And with this 360 and I just love that you used to sing in the choir.
I know.
It is a skill to sing in a choir. You need to be able to not stand out, be able to harmonize with people, and it's such a great joy, I find, to sing with people. Yeah, it's good for the soul.
Yeah. It is. It's a moving feeling, especially when you've got when you're in a space with that many people and you're all harmonizing together, and it's just like, oh, I can feel like the music and the vibrations. Not to get too airy about it, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Can I ask, with everything that you've done, if you had to write a memoir, what would be the title of your book? Now, I know you've written Homecoming Queens, and I know you've written Single Asian Female, but what would be the title of your book?
I don't know what the title would be. That's a really good question, but I think the title it'd have to be a play on words, and it would have to be pretty vulgar, like something to do with poo, maybe. Yeah, just because I feel like that's always something I come back to, and that's very much like my family's humor.
Oh, really?
So probably something like, gross out humor.
Yeah, my family our gross thing we do is farting with each other.
Yeah, that's huge. That's a big thing. Farting, like burping. And because I come from such a big family, there's like 5 kids, and we all grew up, obviously in the same household. So you're always in each other's faces. And it's just like sort of doing the thing that will gross the other person out as much as possible. Yeah. So, toilet humor stuff, asking inappropriate questions at Christmas over Christmas lunch.
Love it. I love family gatherings. And thank you to our LinkedIn and Facebook family for coming on to the SnortCast. Karen is watching from Melbourne, Australia. We've got India, Egypt. Thank you so much for coming on. Nambia. I don't think we've had Nambia before. Melbourne's turned out. Woo, nothing to do in a lockdown. Thanks, guys. Victoria, Kristen, thanks for joining. She's from Melbourne Webfest. We've got the Gold Coast, Kenya. What else have we got here? We've got Brian from Ohio. Thanks for joining again, Brian. We've got some old casters. Awesome. And Alma just wrote, I love inappropriate questions.
Who doesn't? They're so good. You get gold from them.
That's it. There's a question I ask everyone that comes on, which is, what is your first memory of comedy in your work? Because I know you write drama as well, but it sounds like a comedy skit. Family Law showed that, didn't it? Like they showed the drama. But when did you realize that you were able to write comedy or perform comedy?
I think maybe one of the first really significant instances was in uni, where I was sort of trying to figure out what my tone was. And so I remember one of the assignments we got, it was like a non-fiction class at uni, and we were learning how to write reviews. And so we had to choose something to review, whether that was a TV or film or a product. And so I decided to review sanitary products because it was something that I'd never seen done before. And I had a feeling that a lot of other people's reviews would be quite lofty and highbrow. And I wanted, not to say that, a product review for sanitary products, it can't be highbrow and lofty, but I just wanted something that was unexpected and would make people laugh and be obviously taking the piss a bit, as well as being well written. So I think that's sort of been my ethos through most of my comedy projects, just sort of being clever and funny about things, but also having a message within that. So I guess with that review, it was, poking fun at using colourful language to describe the project for the products and things, but at the same time highlighting those things because, people don't really talk about like menstruation, and it's sort of like still a bit of a taboo topic. So I just sort of wanted to like poke the dragon a bit, if that's a saying.
Yes. And I watched, and I can hear where that comedy comes from because I watched Homecoming Queens, and I love that scene. I think it was episode 2 where you're out in the backyard in the pool, and she's talking to the neighbor across the fence, and then can't remember exactly, but you were talking about how you got to take advantage of things, and she pulls up her top, and you see her. Yeah, and I just love that because that was such a truth to that, story, and so I can hear how you're talking about menstruation. Like, let's get real. Let's talk real about.
Yeah, I think so. And I think because so much of like the serious dark stuff that you go through in life, like it is best handled with comedy a lot of the time, especially if you've got something important that you feel like you have to say. Like, I feel like comedy is such a great, it's such a great vehicle for expressing a serious message because you're like making someone laugh, and so they're more likely to be sympathetic to what you're trying to say as opposed to just like ranting on a soapbox type of thing.
Oh, great. Who inspires your writing?
Oh, I guess it depends. Comedy writing in particular? There was I grew up being a massive fan of The Simpsons. And I feel like that's really colored every aspect of my sense of humor, from like the randomness to the absurdness to just like, a bit of the vulgarity as well. So that was definitely a big part of my childhood. And then beyond that, I love stand-up comics. I love like Hannah Gadsby and Ali Wong and Hassan Minhaj and all these. And there was a really long period I went through where I was just reading biographies written by female comedians. And I don't know why I got into that. I think it was because at the time I was getting really invested in improv. And so I'd gone to the US and I did a couple of short courses at Second City in Chicago and UCB in New York. And so I also saw those as like the starting point for comedians and actors who I really loved, like Amy Sedaris and Amy Poehler and Tina Fey. And I was like, oh, okay, so I think this is a good starting point for sort of just seeing what their experiences were and what their training was like. And then, I sort of went from there and also, you know, follow the people that I like, who they like, like, so I can get a sense of, you know, a broader net.
Yeah, I read Mandy Keeling's book, and it was like it just reinforced me that things don't come easy even when you have it.
Yeah.
You if you really love the job that you do, which I love is comedy, you can't take things on a plate. And I have to say, one thing that you do is that you've kind of like gone, this is who I am, and I'm writing my own work instead of waiting for people. Like, it's great when people hand you work, but I think watching you and how you've done your work, you've kind of gone, this is my work, this is what I do, and you're quite prolific on Twitter. Is that where your fan base is from?
Twitter's only really exploded for me every time I've sort of weighed in with serious socio-political issues. Like, it used to be very much just me saying stupid stuff and telling fart jokes and like sharing stupid animal memes, which I still do. And that's what I like love Twitter for, because I liked its silliness. But then, people were sort of just like, oh, she's a hard-hitting, like, socio-political commentator. And I'm like, I am invested in those things, but also you're following me now, and soon you're going to be seeing a joke about my period. So it's a very mixed bag, and good luck to you. So I find Twitter, I mostly follow like a lot of comedians on there. So my feed is very much just like pretty joke heavy.
Yes. Like, have you tried stand-up?
I've thought about it, and it's something that I'm definitely interested in doing when I get some time. It's definitely like a different skill set though, so I'd feel like I'd need a fair bit of training in that sense, or just like, and that would mean, you know, just starting and going to different clubs and just like bombing repeatedly until I learn to get better. I think that's like something that you got to really dedicate. You got to be really dedicated to, like, time-wise and like emotionally as well. So maybe sometime in the future, like, I never rule anything out.
Yeah. No, I can feel it. I can feel it. I just want more, like, women who are, you know, Asian Australian or Asian, you know, universally Asian, just to get up there and say their truth. And that's so important. I believe you definitely could. You will bomb. That's part of the job. But
for sure.
Once you get the bomb, you can, you know, really put a poo joke in, and everyone will laugh at a poo joke. So,
the good ones. Yeah.
I did mention in the beginning when I introduced you and before the video didn't work, which is your show, Single Asian Female.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired you to write that show?
It was actually based on a blog that I used to keep, and it had the exact same name. And I was interested in exploring what it meant to be being single, Asian, and a woman in modern Australia at different points of your life. So it's centered on this family, and there's a mother and her two daughters, and they're all quite at pivotal turning points. And I wanted to explore how those turning points in your life are affected by those three identities. So that was something that I was keen on unpacking.
Yeah. And these women, it was really wonderful to see, because, you know, as an Asian actor in Australia, we get stereotypical roles. But on stage, you were able to like bring so much life to these characters that weren't just eccentric to one type of Asian, and that was exciting. And I forgot the character that Courtney played.
May. Yeah.
Man, oh my god, what a firecracker! It was so good.
She's so, yeah, I love that character, but I love Courtney playing that character in particular because she's done it so many times. I think they did like 130 or 140 shows. So by the end, it was just like so much a part of her.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's right. I remember the show that I went to see at the Arts Centre was a Q&A. And I remember like asking a question to the audience, or just saying a comment. It was like so liberating to hear women swear. Like just because we never really casted to swear. We're like nice, or like it was so brilliant to hear like these swear gutted words coming out of their character. It was so beautiful. So thank you.
I love that. It's like, yeah, it was so beautiful. These cuddling women. But no, yeah, it's really true. Like I have such a potty mouth, and like so do a lot of women I know. So, you've really got to see that true to life on stage or screens or whatever you're working on.
Yeah. Well, our community is still watching. Thanks so much for joining the show, guys. We've got Iceland, which I've never gone to. Hi, Oliver. Thanks for joining the show. And we've got a competition going on right now of people fighting who's better, Sydney or Melbourne.
Oh, God. The ongoing debate.
There is. They're actually having who's the best city. You're a Brisbane girl, aren't you?
I'm from Queensland originally, but I'm based in Sydney now. But if, obviously I would choose neither of those cities. I'd have to choose Brisbane. Just out of loyalty.
Yeah. And mum's in Brisbane at the moment. How have you? Cause she's feels like especially with Ben's work with it's also your work because you're part of you're in the actual show Family Law. It feels like mum has been such a strong character and of juices of comedy. Like when I see posters of her on your Instagram, she's got this massive smile. Like she's like, yeah.
Yeah, she is a character. So I think, even when I'm not trying to infuse some sort of her like vibrancy into my works, she sort of just ends up popping up even in characters who aren't mums even. But yeah, I think definitely growing up in a household with her, I think she's like, she doesn't even realize how funny she is sometimes, but then I'll say, oh, mum, you're really funny. She's like, I know. But she sort of loves it. But yeah, she's eccentric and hilarious and great.
I love it. Yeah, my mum's quite similar. She's like, she was disapproving of my career until I made Peony. And then she saw people paying money to watch the show. So she was like, where's my cut? So
oh my God, that is hilarious.
It just changed. It reverted to, hey, now give me my money that you owe me.
Yeah, now that you're making cash out of it, pay up.
Pay up. Pay the inspiration. That's what she says. And that's what I want to lead to because, we've been in a pandemic. It's been since March. And, we talked about how you did an epic dash home drive to see your family in Brisbane, from Sydney to Brisbane. How have you had to see light during this time? Like, how have you had to laugh and use comedy to get you through this?
I guess just a lot of memes. A lot of memes and stupid animal videos have helped. I think definitely playing also silly games, or like my brother has got a Nintendo Switch. Like he sort of luckily bought one before lockdown happened and before they started selling out. So we've just been playing Mario Kart and enjoying that. And other lightness, I think definitely my cat. He's like a bit of an idiot. And so just having him, especially because during lockdown in Sydney, I was living alone, as I was telling you before. So it was just me and my cat. And I think without him, it would have been like a much darker time. So he provided a lot of comic relief and, just being easy on yourself and just watching like stupid reality TV shows. Like I think I binged all of Say I Do on Netflix, which is like this reality TV show about weddings, and all of Indian matchmaking in like an evening, which I know. Yeah, I was just like, this is so addictive, can't stop.
I was actually disappointed with the Indian matchmaker.
Yeah, I think like there were a lot of think pieces, especially from the Indian diaspora in Australia, because they were like, this is so problematic, and it totally is, especially a lot of the stuff that she says, like the bluntness of like how she speaks. But yeah, I think it's tricky to present those things in a nuanced light, especially to people who aren't familiar with those cultures.
Yeah, but I was more disappointed that they weren't that happy ending that they showed in the trailer.
Oh, I know. At least they're being realistic about it. It's not in work.
I am a single Asian female, so I get it.
I hear you. Yeah, same.
Hands up there. Hands up.
Yeah.
Before we were talking about how The Simpsons was like an inspiration for you, and I have to say, like I when I think about The Simpsons, it was the same thing for me. And I used to make jokes that because they were yellow, they were Asian. Like, you know, that was like, you know, we ruled the TV because we were represented on the show. So I want to talk about diversity in comedy because, you know, you talked about your Twitter. The Simpsons are still yellow, but there's this recurring thing that, and I love, because we were on Melbourne Web Fest and we talked about ownership and, you know, being able to write our perspectives and, you know, having our voice is not just used to drive someone else's narrative, but to drive our own story. Why has that been so important to you?
For me, ownership's really important because you are someone who's lived that experience, and so you're in a position of authority to write about those experiences in a way that is real and doesn't stereotype people or punch down. And I think that's really important in comedy, and that is that you're never punching down at people who are marginalized or like in minority groups. And it's important because if you're telling a particular story about a particular cultural group, just speaking about diversity when it comes to race and ethnicity and things, you know, and you're not sort of from that culture yourself, it sort of removes the opportunity for someone from that culture to write something themselves. So for me, especially growing up with very, very, very little representation, and the stuff that I did have was not great. It wasn't like three-dimensional. It was always sort of punching down and ridiculing people. And so I was like, I really don't want that for younger people who are younger than me. Like, I want them to have things that they can grow up with and sort of look to as my markers, and not feel like they have to then produce their own work. Like, I sort of just want to give them like a head start type of thing.
Because the worst thing that could happen is that in 20 years' time, Asian Australian writers are still knocking on the same doors that we've been doing. And that's not progressing at all. That's just staying in this kind of weird walked out world where, you know, we seek equality, but really there's a lot of privileges that we're missing out on. And that's
Yeah, totally. I think it's tricky because, you know, on one hand, we've got like this bamboo ceiling that we're knocking on. But then on the other hand, like we are like this model minority who's sort of more like adjacent to the majority. So it's like realizing that you're part of these structures and then always challenging yourself as much as you can.
Yeah. Ooh, thanks for yeah. I just want to say thank you, because I'm always learning, and that's really important. I am also an Asian woman, clearly, but I'm also learning to intellectually also express my opinion and how I feel. So it's really powerful when you have someone who can do that, and I'm learning that language as well. So thank you for always reinforcing that and owning it. So.
I'm just trying my best. Like, I'm learning as well. Like, I'm still like, I feel like life is just a lifelong learning process for everybody. Like, I don't think anyone has necessarily the answers. Yeah, you sort of just everyone's on their own path type of thing.
Yeah. And this is why the show is I feel powerful on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a learning platform. People on here who are in corporate are curious about comedy and the arts, and that's why I love talking about this stuff on LinkedIn, because it's such a rare but also a place that allows inclusive thinking and talking. And I want to talk about your TED Talk, your TEDx that you did in 2012, which was a while ago. It was called A Bold Woman's Guide to Survival, and I didn't spell survival correctly.
Comedy.
Hope I spelled that right. How was it to stand up and talk about, because you have alopecia? Is that how I say it?
Alopecia.
Thank you. And we just talked about ownership. How was it to stand up on stage and tell this audience, this is my story?
It was really liberating and like quite a relief at the time. I can't watch that talk. It's like when you write something and then you have to rewatch, or like you record your voice and then you hear it again, and I'm like, I never want to see this footage. But yeah,
I brought up a nightmare, didn't I? I'm sorry.
It was like the actual event was a bit intimidating because it's live, and you're not allowed like palm cards or anything like that. So you essentially have to remember like this 15-minute presentation off by heart. So I was like, that's already terrifying. But I think the actual subject matter, like talking about alopecia and just like taking off my wig on stage and things, that was just more of a relief, because I sort of just wanted to get it out of the way, because my work at that point was becoming more public, and like just having to constantly like expose yourself, or like, for lack of a better word, like come out as a bald woman constantly was really exhausting. So I was like, I'd rather just have something out there in the public that I can just refer them to. And then I don't have to explain it again. So I think at the time it was just like a relief.
Yeah. And it's a great way to tell someone your story by just saying, here's the link.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Like, if you want to learn more, just click on the link. Like, link in bio. Check it out.
I had an experience with my mum. My mum was random. She had a bit of a mid-crisis. And one day we came home and she shaved her head.
Oh.
Yeah, she just...
Like, just like having a Britney moment.
Yes, she did. She had a Britney moment, and and afterwards, you have a bit of regrowth, and it's become annoying. So my mum bought wigs from Vietnam, right, because they're cheaper. So there was this one time I went into a room and I just screamed because the wig was like from behind, so you didn't see the face. So it felt like it was a human being.
It's terrifying.
It was terrifying.
I used to wash my wigs in the bathroom and leave them drying on the stand, like in the shower, and then I'd walk in at night, like to go to the bathroom, and just be like, because I wouldn't remember that I'd left it there, and it would just look like someone was in my bathroom. Yeah, it's pretty scary. So now I know them in the wardrobe, just like behind a closed door.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Nightmare. Don't leave wigs. LinkedIn community and Facebook community, thanks so much for joining us. Before we finish up, if you have any Q&A questions for Michelle, we are going to answer them after this question, which is, you speak a lot on panels. You've spoken at a TED Talk. What would be your tip for someone to share their story, to have the confidence or courage to tell their story?
I think just always bringing it back to that human beings really just want to connect with each other. And like, it's okay. I really love Brene Brown. And so, it's good to be vulnerable, and that sort of can instill you with some courage, because you sort of have to remind yourself that no one really knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a good equalizer in your mind. Yeah.
So I did a TED Talk this year as well, and it was about joy and and having the courage to use own joy every day, because that is I think it is courageous to remind yourself that you can be happy and be foolish, and you're
allowed to be happy.
Yes, be allowed to be happy. That's it. Can I? Well, our audience, they're asking questions now. So I forgot why I was saying that. My brain just flipped. It's Monday. It's Monday. Oh, wait. It was joy. Yeah, I've gone. It's gone. It's gone. Thanks for tuning in. Our first question is from Karen. She said, do you give Trumpy a hard time on Twitter?
As in Donald Trump?
Yeah, so that's a new name. I've not seen the name before. Trump.
I never engage with him directly, because I'm like, he's just like a weird caricature of himself now. So I never engage with him, but I tend to like retweet other people's commentary on him, or like just jokes about Trump, or just a bit of satire, or just highlighting how illogical a lot of the stuff that he says or lies about is. Yeah. So I'm more concerned with like things as well that are happening in Australia. So I tend to give like the government a hard time.
Well, yeah, she's followed up with another question. How did that go? And did you cop any flack from that?
Not really. Like, I think because I'm just like such a small, like, I'm really nobody compared to a lot of other people who are giving them a hard time. And so for me, it's like when I do give them a hard time, it's more to highlight to people who are following me. It's to highlight them issues, like social issues that they might not have been aware of. And so they can then question themselves and like who they're voting for and stuff.
I've just lost it. Here we go. Another question from Joel Murphy. Do you collaborate with your brother Benjamin a lot?
Oh, yeah. We actually wrote a comedy book in, I think it was 2014. So we co-wrote that together, and that was called Shit Asian Mothers Say.
Yes.
Yeah. And we collaborate. We haven't done any formal projects together since then, but we'll sort of collaborate on interviews or like little podcasts and things like that. But like, definitely would love to work with him again in the future. I think we're sort of just more doing our like own stuff at the moment. But yeah, always a possibility.
And if you're following Michelle or Benjamin on their Instagram, they are rock climbing. That's a hot tip for everyone. So they are.
Oh yeah, that's like a personal collaboration. So we went indoor rock climbing, and I think we'll go again soon. But my arms still are quite sore.
It is work, isn't it? It's not easy.
Yeah, because it's cardio and strength at the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, that's not my thing. I don't do strength. That's also, we've got Joseph wrote something quite poignant, or kind of like shows the racist Australian maybe. Tell me about Nadine. I used to get astonished looks when people heard me speak, and all I used to say was, "Yeah, I was burnt." So, thanks for that. And Ahmed just said, "Love the diversity conversation. Thank you so much, both." Yeah, they're all turning. There's a lot of comments, and I'm trying to find that they're all commenting right now. They're saying your mum's looking for that bargain on wigs. Thanks for that. And Karen just said, should Asian mothers say haven't read that one? Sounds hilarious. Go check it out. It is at readings. I have seen it in the bookshelf at readings. Yeah. Well, I think that's it for the Q&A. Before you go, what's next on your slate of work?
I am currently working on a couple of TV concepts, so like new original TV concepts, and working on some new drafts for plays that are hopefully going to be on soon. And what else? Other like secret projects that I'm not allowed to talk about yet.
Well, if you want to find out what Michelle's up to, go check her out on her Twitter and Instagram. You'll be updated on her work. And Michelle, thank you so much for joining us this evening on a Monday night.
No worries. Thanks so much for having me. It was a really fun time.
I had a great time too with all the stuff. There was so many stuff ups. Like I think it's just kind of drawn at my brain.
It's fine.
Everyone, thanks for joining on LinkedIn and Facebook. Now, remember, if you want to check out the show, it is on Facebook, YouTube, and on Instagram if you want updates on our next guest. Our next guest on Thursday is Celia Piccola. She'll be joining us on Thursday to talk about her comedy and how she applies it to her work. Thank you to our Patreon community, and we will see you on Thursday. And before we leave, I will get this video up. See you then. Bye.
Yeah, baby. Yeah.